Can we just have that as our intro every time? That exact phrasing of whiskey loves me. Whiskey loves me.
Well, he does.
He does love you. It's true.
I think I'm one of like 3 things in his life that brings him joy.
His life
It's
is a
actually
very
a little
small place. He's a cat,
He does
after
not-
all.
He does not have a rich and fulfilling inner life.
Me neither.
We're the Ankh-Morpork Historical Guild, right? That's the
Nope.
name of this podcast.
Historians Guild.
Historians.
Oh. Well, I mostly got it.
It says it right there. Like,
We're
look at
the
you just have to read it.
Ankh-Morpork Historians Guild. We're reading all of the Discworld books in the order that they were published, and reviewing them, talking about
And
them.
we're a little rusty.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, let's-
also, if you care at all about spoilers, you should probably read the book first before listening to us, because we don't give a shit about spoilers. We don't give spoiler warnings or anything.
In our defense, this book came out before we were fucking born. So people have certainly had
That's
enough
true.
time to get to it.
When
This-
did this one come out?
The book we are reading today, called Witches Abroad, was published in 1991.
1991.
And what are both of your names?
I am I'm mulch. I use they them pronouns. I feel like maybe we should redo the introduction. 'cause
No. Exactly as you forgot your own name there. That was good. That's the take.
Okay.
Keep in mind, this isn't like a podcast name. That's their actual name that they just forgot.
Yeah, that is my actual name.
I love the idea of a podcast
That is-
name.
That is my actual legal name. I paid $200 to get that name.
You didn't get a waiver?
No.
You don't have to pay for that shit. Oh my god.
I didn't know that. I was like years ago.
Okay, my name is Purtis. I also use they them pronouns.
My name is Chio. I use she her pronouns.
We are the Ankh-Morpork Historians Guild.
All right.
I guess we did technically already say that.
Yeah, we did technically already
say
say that, but let's get into Witches Abroad. This has been a long time coming. Let's get into Witches Abroad.
Yeah. It's also been a long time since we've listened to this book. I re-listened to some of it, but I didn't re-listen to all of it. So some of it.
I actually re-listened to all of it yesterday.
I tried to re-listen to the abridged version, but actually fell asleep.
So we have some conflicting opinions on this book.
I mean, yeah,
This is one of the first Discworld books I ever read. I think I first read it when I was in like 5th or 4th grade. And it's one of my favorites. And this is probably my favorite Granny Weatherwax book.
Oh no.
Which
I'm in
Curtis
danger.
prefers equal rights to this for a Granny Weatherwax.
Yeah, I really did not enjoy this book. I'm the outlier here. I feel like I disliked it in any really interesting ways. But I didn't super like it. In this case, Granny Weatherwax is my mother. And I go to therapy now, so it's not so bad, but really don't like it. Not enjoyable.
Yeah.
Granny Weatherwax contains all of the worst traits that my mother has. And they're painted as good traits in this book, which actually makes it worse.
Yeah, you're Magrat brings up a lot of good points about Granny Weatherwax that aren't like really acknowledged in the book as being anything.
Well, less than like not being anything. Like they're brought up, and then they talk about them, and they're like, "Yeah, but it's okay because she's doing good in the end," which is such a weird. I feel like Terry Pratchett in so many times has mentioned the idea that like there's nothing more dangerous than a person who just believes wholeheartedly that they are doing the right thing. Like, even if there's protests. Like, Terry Pratchett talks about that idea a lot. And then in this book, and in some other Granny Weatherwax appearances, the idea that because Granny Weatherwax knows what's right, she's good, or, like, no matter what, is like, it happens all the time. It's kind of really annoying to me. It's this weird oversight.
My perspective is that Granny Weatherwax as a character is like, how shall I put this? I think she is at her core the same character in the Witch's book that she is in Equal Rights, which is like, I've been thinking about it Equal Rights some, and I think it is less the first book in the Witch's books than it is a sort of proto-Tiffany Aching book, sort of like the first draft for the Tiffany Aching series. And the portrayal of Granny Weatherwax in these two series is different but built off of the same basic idea, which is Granny Weatherwax is a senior witch. She is stubborn, socially conservative, fairly hypocritical.
Fairly.
Like, pretty hypocritical. That is one of her core traits. And intelligent and kind of kicks the world into place. And I think the fundamental difference between the two portrayals is that in the Witch's books, she's entertaining and fun to watch and does things that are fun. Whereas in the Witch's books, whereas in Equal Rights and Tiffany Aching series, she kind of doesn't do fun things, but she's still like, but she has all of the things that bug me, which is she's got that super socially conservative, upright thing.
Yeah.
So I vastly prefer the Witch's books, because in the Witch's books she'll do really outrageous, fun to read about things.
The difference for me between her appearances in Tiffany Aching and the like main Witches novels is that in both Equal Rights and some of the Tiffany books, there's somebody who like actually gets to push back, and because they're the main character, like gets to be more right. Like even in Equal Rights, where that little girl had like almost no power, we are supposed to see Granny as like a little more wrong than we do in the Witches books. In the Witches books, because she's the hero, she actually is right, and it doesn't matter what she's doing. She just gets to be right, and she gets to be doing the right thing for the most part in her own stubborn, fucked up way. Whereas like Tiffany pushes back, and we see it from Tiffany's perspective, and like we get to see that alternative. In this book, Magrat like tried to take up that position, but because this was a very different story, just kind of gets shut down and is told by Nanny, like, that don't really fucking matter. She get it done. Which is like stupid. It's not right.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah, but she doesn't do... Granny Weatherwax doesn't do anything fun in Equal Rights.
Like, I mean, I don't agree with that at all. She goes to that sex shop and has that great fucking scene. And she's... Even her just, like, interacting with this kid is fucking funny to me.
See, it wasn't... I think maybe it's full of rage, but I really enjoy watching somebody just kick the world into shape.
It's funny. we talked a little bit about the Tiffany Aching books too, and like some of the like why I probably like them more than you do. And I don't remember the Tiffany Aching books really well, but I remember that to me the most compelling thing about Granny Weatherwax was what was like I disagree with her about so many things, but I remember in the Tiffany Aching books, what I found really compelling about her was that she was someone who did do the jobs that needed to be done, like the like hospice care and like all of that sort of stuff, and like her teaching Tiffany about that is what I found really compelling about her as a character when I was a kid. But I don't know how I'm going to like we haven't gotten to those books yet, so I don't know how those are going to read for me now that I'm older.
Yeah, I think that'll be really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah,
is-
see, we're very different people because for me, like, reading about the hospice care and the midwifing stuff is just like tedious.
Oh yeah, no, I really like that part.
A shock. I also do generally like Granny Weatherwax more as like a side character who appears to do some dirty work thing. Like that is usually my favorite position for her because I think she's a really interesting, quick character, and that she can have a strong impact on a story very rapidly. Kind of like the Mystic Sage, except that she's delivering a baby and angry as hell. Having to spend too much time with her, like, just really gets to me. I think if I read every Discworld book where she's not a main character, I would love her, and I would think of her as one of the best characters. But then I read one with her, and she's just my mom. Because it's all well and good to have the idea of kicking the world into shape. But what Granny Weatherwax actually does is kick people into the shape that she believes is right. It is her main tenet that she can set within her mind something is absolutely, unshakably true, and that is often at odds with the people around her. And it is supposed to be heroic that she can beat those people into shape. And I just don't find it to be so.
Yeah. That is really interesting to me. And I think I'm kind of in between you two in my opinions of this book specifically, because like things about how they like present Granny Weatherwax did bug me, but I also really enjoyed watching her as well. Like I felt both those things. Like I really enjoy watching like the gambling scene. Like that was a lot of fun.
That gambling scene might be my favorite Granny Weatherwax scene in all of the Discworld books.
Yeah, I did enjoy that scene as well.
Mm-hmm.
It is fun when she can extract her cruel justice, and it's rightful. But it often isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely did not like this as much as Weird Sisters. I definitely liked Weird Sisters more as a witch's book.
Well,
despite some of the weird things that were in that book.
I think Weird Sisters might be the better book, but I think I might slightly prefer Witches Abroad.
Yeah, we focused a lot on Granny here, but let's talk about the other problems that I have with this book. Which is like, I really felt that this was a return to his messy, nearly unconnected imagery structure. A lot of the scenes that happen on their way to Genoa, like, just don't have to. They're not, like, they're barely supporting the text of the book in a lot of ways. And to me, he's talking about the nature of stories within stories a lot, but he's just kind of pointing to it. He doesn't have something like... it doesn't feel like he has something as concise to say about that fact or the idea. He just wants to play with it and do with it. The whole time I was reading this book, I was just struck by how much it didn't feel like it was as constructed as his last two. And to some extent, it felt like he was holding back on some ideas, either because he wanted them for small gods, which he wrote in his essays that he had been working on for far before Witches Abroad, and which came out shortly after this.
Mm-hmm.
Or just because he wasn't in the space. I double-checked. He didn't write any essays the year this came out or the year before. And, who knows what was going on for him. But to me, this book just didn't feel as precise as the last two that we had gotten, which were Reaper Man and Moving Pictures.
See, I think Reaper Man is a much messier book than this one.
Oh, I think this book is messy.
Because I think Reaper Man, it kind of feels like multiple stories Reaper Man kind of felt like two different stories sort of woven together, whereas this one feels like a single unified story. And for me, that's because I think Terry Pratchett, for the first time, I kind of agree that it is a more rambling kind of vignette built story than most of his his two recent ones. But I think, and sort of a return to the travelogue style he wrote before.
Yeah.
But for me, this is the one where he got it right, because he found a format and a structure that would support that storytelling, that style of storytelling. Which is he found a plot line that would support a more he found a loose format where he could take all of these small stories and build one big story out of it, which is it's a road trip story.
Yeah. It is a road trip story, but even within a road trip story, I just felt like the vignettes just didn't support kind of his point, or weren't nothing. He would go to a place and not really say anything with it. The one that really stuck out for me was when he went to Sleeping Beauty's castle, or whatever. That's Sleeping Beauty, right? Where she pricks her finger on the stupid thing.
Yeah.
That one, for me, I just was like, it passed really quickly, and at the end didn't have, any impact. There was nothing that really, hit for me in that. And to some extent...
It's kind of weird to me that you picked the one that was, actually specifically relevant to the plot of the overall story.
It just goes to show that, but what I'm saying is, because what did they get there? They gain what? Something stupid? Some knowledge there?
It's the one where, specifically Lilith, Granny Weatherwax's sister and the heavy of the book, was the one who was the Wicked Witch in the story, the one who put the princess to sleep, where she was practicing building stories and letting them play out.
Yeah,
I thought
and
that was
they all
of them.
recognized.
Yeah,
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. The first few stories, the first few places they stop off are unconnected.
No. The wolf. The wolf is made by Lilith.
That comes after Sleeping Beauty, and it's right where in the same area where they're getting closer and closer to Genua.
See,
Dracula was not Lilith. Dracula was not Lilith. The Running of the Bulls was not Lilith.
The Running of the Bulls
wasn't,
true. But Dracula was. I thought.
No, it wasn't. There's no indication.
Oh, I guess I had just assumed that creature existed in that way. Because we have already seen other vampires. But anyways, like, I just didn't feel like it fit in a really for me, it just didn't work. Like, it just didn't feel like it was a very effective way. Like, literally, a house gets like, they pass by this place, they go in, solve it very quickly, walk out, fucking house falls on her, walk out of that, fucking walk into the woods, beat up a wolf, which is, like, by far the most interesting of those ones for me. And they're all kind of to do with the main story, but don't add anything to it for me. The wolf is the only
Sleeping
one.
Beauty one was, like, very plot relevant, because that's the first one where, like, the people in the castle think that they recognize Granny Weatherwax. And that's the first indication to Nanny Og and Magrat that, like, there is something that Granny Weatherwax is not telling them. And it's our first, and I think it's the first one where we as the readers start to get an indication that Lilith is related to Granny Weatherwax in some way.
No, we learned that from the very beginning.
I mean, we know that they have a connection. We don't know that they are, like, biologically related until the Sleeping Beauty section.
We do because fucking the old lady who dies at the beginning to set shit off heavily points towards it. What's her name?
I know that I already
She
knew
says,
that.
well, one of them is going to have to learn.
Yeah, and she says the reflection looks a lot like a little
I
later
from
on.
That point, I knew they were sisters. Like, I already knew they were sisters by that point. They're
okay,
but
my point about it being the first point where the reader's getting an inkling is probably wrong. That
yeah, Terry was really not
it's
subtle
the first
with this
time.
one.
Yeah, but it is the first time that Magrat and Nanny Og start to get that inkling.
Yeah.
Yes, because it is the first magical thing that Lilith does in the story.
And I liked the house falling one on one because I don't know, I just thought that one was funny and charming.
So here's I mean, it's Terry Pratchett, right? If each of these things was a separate short story, yeah, they're really funny scenes. They're really interesting in their own way, but they don't add to the story overall that he's telling.
I totally disagree. I don't think either of these would make for... I don't think there's enough there to make for an entertaining short story. But I think as an offhand... But I think as a sort of vignette within a larger story, they are very enjoyable.
See, to me, they feel pared down because he's trying to fit them in this story where they don't really belong. If there was only one of these, or they were more closely related as scenes, I might find it more enjoyable. But the addition of, like, putting them back to back really quickly, they feel pretty pared down. Like, really, the castle is the one that bothers me the most because it just is so fast. They literally, like, walk in and walk out. And it just doesn't work for me. Like, he keeps pointing to this thing about stories within stories. And then the most interesting thing he has to say about them is that, like, they happen. And that, like, some of the magic of this world is bound to those rules. And that's just not very much. This is, like, maybe partially...
I feel like I also disagree with you there, but it's for significant... But it is for irrational reasons.
Yeah.
Namely, I think my most irrational... I guess, like... His idea of stories existing outside of people, and the idea that people continuously reenact stories unintentionally, or sort of the idea of narratives driving people is very appealing to me.
Yeah.
Even though I don't see it as having any basis in necessarily having much basis in reality,
And
logically speaking.
And this story doesn't reflect it super well in some ways either, right? Like, he's got this point that, like, people will conform to stories, right? That the stories we tell affect us, and the stories are cyclical in our world. They live without us, and we recreate them. Except that the whole premise of this story is that someone is unnaturally recreating stories, and that it doesn't happen naturally, and we're doomed. Which is, like, kind of undercutting that original principle. And I don't know. Some of my feeling on it might be that, like, I read a lot of stories about stories. I'm a huge fan of, like, SCPs. I'm reading them all the time, and I read lots of meta-narratives about stories within stories, or characters within stories, understanding that they are stories. It's one of my favorite, like, short story genres. It's one of my favorite like, character study genres. And so I'm exposed to a lot of content like this. And for me, there just wasn't anything that really moved me in Witches Abroad. There wasn't a moment that added something that I felt was interesting to that discussion.
But, like, if you're first being introduced to the concept or to the genre, it might be more interesting, like, experiencing that for the first time.
Very potentially.
I kind of felt like, just, like, structure-wise, I think one of my biggest, what pulled through with this book for me was the, like, humor, especially the humor in the individual scenes, but it made this enjoyable to me, even though I didn't really like the structure, because I do kind of feel that, like, I wish there had been more focus on those really quick scenes that went back to back, because, like, the travel story structure I didn't enjoy all that much. Like, I got kind of tired of it as it went on, but, like, the humor in those individual scenes is what pulled me through to still enjoy it, even though I was getting tired of that, like, those really quick travel scenes. I don't know if that makes sense. But
can we talk about the wolf scene, though? Because I really like that wolf scene.
Yeah. The body horror and the terror of the animals made human was really well portrayed. I really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't have a lot to say about it. I thought it was cool, and I thought he painted it really well. It was really visceral, how terrified the wolf was. And how unwilling it was.
And how it was unable to live properly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought that was nice. I really struggled with this book, y'all.
Yeah.
Let's move on to one of the more interesting for the whole wide world of the Discworld thing he does here, which is, this is like the only time he uses a real actual fucking religion in one of his books, and it's super duper weird.
I'm not comfortable with a lot of the voodoo stuff.
Yeah, so in Genoa, in the swamp, there is a lady named Lady what's her name?
Goggle.
She full ass practices what is essentially voodoo. I think he gives it a silly name, or does he actually say voodoo?
He actually says voodoo. He deadass says voodoo.
Yeah, he says voodoo.
He deadass says voodoo. Baron Saturday is real. Baron Saturday
Oh,
is a
he is?
yeah, that's a pre-existing voodoo thing. The Legba, Papa Legba, also real. And some of the ways that she does her magic is probably inspired by real practices, food magics
So,
and stuff.
yeah.
And again, these are voodoo's not what a lot of the practices would actually be called, but they are if you were in England in 1991 and had never met a black person.
Yeah.
Or so it's
So that's a choice that he made.
It's a really whack fucking choice. It comes out of nowhere. And she is literally raising zombies. She's like doing all this fucking shit. It's super, super duper weird.
It's also got that frustrating thing where a lot of times writers will not write about voodoo as a religious practice, but as a form of witchcraft.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that
Which is exactly what this is.
Yes. This book falls precisely into that era. And
this is also a thought that I'm still working on and is somewhat unformed. And it's I guess I would describe it as being that a sort of soft version of that style of stories. You see it a lot in like grindhouse horror from the 70s and 80s, where it's a sort of terror of marginalized people rising up and turning on their oppressors, where it both where it's like super ambivalent about it, where these type of narratives, you see them a lot in like the cannibal genre of horror film, or in like antebellum South stories, where it's both very clear, where the writer is clear about the fact that these are oppressed people who are rising up against a genuine acts of violence and terror committed against them. But at the same time, these people are demonized and othered, and viewed almost entirely within the context of being a threat.
Yeah.
And obviously this story is like a much lighter version of this type of story, where like there are black and marginalized characters within the story who are actual characters and not just as a broad and not just an idea. But at the same time, I feel like there's a sort of outline of that type of narrative embedded in Witches Abroad.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt kind of weird. It did feel kind of weird, the whole
kind of
those
And also there's the simple fact that Mrs. Goggle is kind of like, she doesn't fit cleanly within the story itself.
Well,
where it's like it feels like you could write this story without her in it, and it would almost make more sense, because she kind of doesn't play a role in the finale. Like, she's there, but it's not clear what impact her actions have on the actual story.
I mean, she's
That
really
makes any
there
sense.
to bring back the old king or whatever, and to have this like moment, and to act as guide for this like world, this area of Genua.
But it doesn't have any impact on the actual finale, and it's super odd.
Yeah, for me, it feels really messy. It's one of those things, again, where it's like this just doesn't feel like correct. It just doesn't feel like you kind of thought this through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though it does have like one of my other favorite Granny Weatherwax moments, where she thrusts her hand into the fire.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Granny Weatherwax thrusts her hand into fire is a very cool scene. Do enjoy that.
And that's the first time she does that within the Discworld books.
See, I haven't read enough of her books to know that she does it again.
Oh, she actually does do it again in the it shows up in the later Tiffany Aching books.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. I actually do know that. You know, sometimes you watch two things and your brain starts to put together a trope, but you can't think of other examples. She acts as... I just watched Constantine, the movie from 2005, maybe, with Keanu Reeves. A movie which I personally love, but which is not good. In that movie, there is also a voodoo guy who like runs a neutral spot and then eventually betrays the main character to some extent. He doesn't, but he does a little bit.
Unfortunately, that is also within the Constantine comic books, if I remember correctly.
Yes, which I know. Can you think of another voodoo practitioner / witch doctor trope who runs a neutral spot and eventually lightly betrays the main character, but not significantly?
Not off the top of my head, but I do know that that's a thing.
Yeah, right? I feel like I can't do... I'm like, this is a thing, right? I feel like I've seen something else that has this in it.
Maybe we should throw this out to the listeners. Hey, people who may or may not be listening to this podcast, if you can think of any story that has a voodoo or witch doctor character who runs a neutral spot and then lightly betrays the protagonist, throw the details and title down in the comment section. If we get any responses, we'll go over it next episode.
How fucking specific is that? But also, I feel like I've seen something with this before, right?
Yeah, no, it feels familiar to me. I just can't think of the specific examples.
I know. Anyways.
Gotta look up through examples of voodoo in media.
I am actively doing this.
Yeah.
Miss Gogol will also appear in Terry Pratchett's Nation as Mrs. Gurgle. Real name unpronounceable by the English Daphne. It says so. Cool.
I am not looking forward to Nation.
Nation's not in the Discworld series. I don't have to read that shit.
I feel like we should still read it.
You're the one who were like...
I've changed my mind. I read this. I read this fucking Miss Gogol part, and she's a cool character. I should point out, I like her as a person. Miss Gogol,
I do too.
Is really cool. I think that she's fun and as a person is interesting. She just is within an uncomfortable trope he's not qualified to write using real religion. And real practices. That it's not like really like this dude running with some like New Orleans fucking voodoo shit is it hits different.
Genua is super weird because it's like, am I crazy, or is it like New Orleans fused with Italy?
It's like nothing and everything all at the same time. Like it feels like he wanted to do.
Because I definitely got like, I was like, this is definitely New Orleans, but I'm also getting Italy vibes from this.
I got what hit for me was like the feeling of fairy tale towns in like German fairy tales.
I kind of felt all those things.
Yeah.
I like
that's what I felt. I remembered the fool who did not know how to be afraid and the one with the prince and the rings. Like that's kind of what it brought me back to.
I mean, like, the fairy tale town bit makes a lot of sense because that's intentional. It is Lilith interposing a structure over a place that she has gone to.
Yeah. But yes, you're right. They do celebrate like Fat Tuesday. Is that right? Fat Tuesday is the one they did?
Yeah.
Is that what they called it in this, I should say?
That is actually what they called it.
Okay.
They might have called it Fat Thursday, actually, but
they called it Mardi Gras, and then Nanny Og translated that as Fat Tuesday. So there's a possibility that it's a joke, and like a joke mistranslation.
Nanny Og actually mistranslated it as Fat Lunchtime. Mardi Gras does actually mean Fat Tuesday, which is why I was confused.
And the old lady at the start also referred to it as Fat Tuesday.
Oh, good.
Before we even saw Nanny Og.
Yeah.
And like,
so it's full as Mardi Gras.
The food is very and the food is very New Orleans. Like, this is the Discworld book with the best food.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like I really kept on wanting to eat stuff.
I thought he used food very interestingly here, because he does actually point to other food, which is much more like Germanic English, within the castle and within Lilith's domain. And then the cook goes and is like, no, this is what we like actually fucking eat. You don't want any of this fucking garbage. Which I really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. Like, I really liked that little scene of her being like, this nice shit is bullshit. Like, this is garbage. This is garbage ass. Come with me to the sticks and we'll eat some good fucking shit.
Which is very real.
It is very real. And I really liked the cook character.
I liked... Yeah, she is...
Whose name I don't remember because I read this book a month ago.
I read it yesterday and suddenly I can't remember her name.
Mrs. Pleasant.
Mrs. Pleasant. So far, she is the person... This is the first time in a Discworld book. She is the first time in a Discworld book where Terry Pratchett has written a person of color, and I have not felt immediately uncomfortable in some level.
Is she a person of color? I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, she's black.
Nice.
Yeah.
I am proud of him. Yeah, no, it's usually pretty rough.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice, which is a really good sign.
Yeah. Well, no, he does say that she's the first black person that Nanny Og has ever met.
Oh, right, because he hits us with that line about racism wasn't a problem on Discworld.
God.
While being just so fucking racist.
He says that a lot in Discworld books, and then he'll show people being explicitly racist.
Yeah,
like
also
in Jingo, which is a book about human on human racism.
God, we need to get to Jingo. I haven't read it because I haven't. Dodge that one.
I would say that it is probably less racist than you are expecting it to be.
Well, because if he's directly talking about it, he's at least being more conscientious than all the times where he doesn't mean to be.
But it is a very intense read.
Well,
Yeah. No, I'm excited to get to that one just because I want to see what you guys have to say on it, basically.
Yeah. Let me tell you,
as our token white
this
character,
book-
Mulch.
I will say that in some points, I think Mrs. Pleasant sold her cooking at the castle short, because her first introduction shows her like handing some chicken to a guard and saying, "Here, have this. I'm experimenting with a new peanut coating," and hearing that made my mouth water. Like I was like, "Ugh, I want some peanut coated chicken now."
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Those guards that did then get crushed to death as bugs.
No, these were different guards.
Those are different
These
guards?
Yeah, those are the guards at the castle. The ones that got turned into bugs were the coachmen at Ella's place.
Which was brutal. Like, even
Oh yeah, like
you
that
hear
poor
about
girl
it
was
second-
fucking traumatized.
Yeah, like you hear about it secondhand. I kind of like that you hear about it secondhand. Like you hear about it, you're not actually in the scene for that, but you hear about it from the girl after like that whole scene of them like pulling out their lunches from their wives and stuff and like talking to each other.
Yeah.
And then
Oh yeah,
getting drunk with Nanny Og. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That was wild.
yeah.
Oh, also Grebo was great in this. I loved Grebo.
Oh, yeah?
In this.
Grebo's here and he's here to fuck.
I fully expected him to fuck that human lady. I'm gonna be real. I thought
I did not.
He's a
Like-
coward for not, honestly. Let me just say it here. He's a coward. Terry Pratchett's a coward because a cat doesn't fuck a human person.
if he'd just not mentioned it again, you would have just assumed he'd fucked that human lady. Instead, he had to like
100%.
specifically back out of it.
He specifically was like, no. Grebo did not fuck this human woman, and this human woman will not have babies through the cat man.
But I'm also gonna say you guys are naive for thinking Terry Pratchett would even write that, because there are what 3 human on human sex scenes in the entirety of Discworld.
I don't think he would like actually write them like the act, but I would expect him to be like,
He could have just left it.
I mean,
yeah,
he
like if
written them
exactly
live
if he
next.
hadn't brought it up again.
Also, I wanted Nanny Og and that dwarf to fuck. I just wanted that for her.
Oh, Casanunda?
Casanova, or whatever.
Yeah, it's a joke because Casanova, Casanunda,
Oh,
because
God.
because he's a short dwarf.
Yeah, I wanted them to fuck. I just want to see Nanny Og fuck. Let's be honest.
There's
here.
this one line where Casanunda says, "I'm very attracted to dominant women," and I was like, "Me too, dude. Me too."
Yeah. Nanny Og is really my number one in this book.
Yeah, Nanny Ogg's very funny.
I just want to be her or fuck her. I'm gonna edit that out.
Nope. No,
No,
you're
you're
not.
not.
No,
We're not
you're
letting
not.
you.
No. You may not fuck that. You may not edit that out. You have to put the fucking in.
Okay. I will.
This book, oh yeah, I really like the scene where a house drops on Nanny Ogg's head, and like she has a mild concussion afterwards because of her willow enforced hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good, the Willow Enforced hat.
I really like the descriptions of witches' hats and boots inside of the Discworld series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Man.
I just like the idea that these are hats you can run a tank over and they would pop back into shape afterwards.
Yeah.
Is there anything else of interest to say? Like anything in our analogy?
Yeah.
Our analysis of this book?
Yeah. I would like to reiterate that, like, Terry Pratchett is a really good writer.
Yes,
He's just really good at describing things. Like, at one point, he describes Nanny expressions crossing over Nanny Ogg's face, like weather over a plane. And there's another bit where he describes Nanny Ogg picking up Grebo, and he droops like a bag full of wet cement.
Yeah.
Which is a perfect description, because that's what cats look like when you pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
Or like when you pick up a cat who loves you, that's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
They just droop.
Yeah.
And I also I like the sort of description of Ella's living situation, where like there are a lot of small details that I find compelling. Like how when Magrat initially goes to the front door, knocks with the knocker and it breaks off, and then she tries to knock on the door and the paint chips.
Mm-hmm.
And it suddenly hits you that this like isn't a real house that's meant to be used.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like it's a sort of facade, a fake front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's a very good subtle detail.
Mm-hmm.
It is. A couple of the other like fun little jokes. I think one of my favorite things about Terry is like how many little jokes he makes that you'll only know if you are aware of them. One of the ones he makes really early on, which is about the voodoo gods, but which I found very, very funny, is that Lady Gogol in one of the first scenes calls upon Mr. Safeway, which Safeway is a grocery chain here. And the joke is that there is another god who's called Carrefour, which just means crossroads, which is also a popular supermarket chain in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
And so he's making that joke. He's swapping out the supermarket chain, which is pretty fucking funny. Another one that we missed talking about earlier, you can know by page 16 in most editions that Lilith is Weatherwax's sister, because the fake name that they give is Lady Lilith de Tempsker, which is just French for Weatherwax.
Yeah.
Tempest, sir. Which I think is very
You're
funny.
right. I did not get those jokes at all.
Oh, I will
Like
add
I
in.
got the Safeway one, but I was like kind of confused because I was wondering like if there was any follow-up or if it went anywhere.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know the crossroads.
Yeah, Carrefour.
One.
Yeah. I should double check that Carrefour means crossroads. I'm pretty sure it does. But I know Carrefour is a god. And it means something in French because New Orleans used to be France. I will say that this is our fifth, maybe fourth appearance of the name Lobsang in this book. It will not be the last. It's the only Asiatic name he knows. Just thinks it sounds good.
It's just a fancy tea. It's like I don't think it's even a name.
It is. I looked into this after we talked about it last time, and the reason he uses the name Lobsang is actually worse than you think.
Oh no.
There used to be a psychic whose actual name was Cyril Hoskin, and he was born in England, but he called himself Lobsang Rampa and claimed to be a Tibetan monk with paranormal powers. He wrote a bunch of books, one of which I think I own.
Oh no.
Before this, way back, he was super defrauded. He was like wild, like every media just turned against this dude, totally fucking hunted him down, and that's why all the names are Lobsang, I guess. Which is
That would explain why he chose Lopsang Dibbler.
Yes, right. That's next book, right? No. We already did that.
No, Lopsang Dibbler was Magrat was getting into these self-defenses.
Oh,
yes.
The ninja.
That's
books.
I forgot that's why it had pulled up. Yes, it is a scam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. In the future, it will not be, and he will continue to use the name Lobsang.
Yep. Which is not good.
It appears in a lot of his books. It appears in many of his books, and even outside of the Discworld. His book, The Long Earth, also has the name Lobsang.
I'd totally forgotten that.
The Long Earth is one of my favorite books of his, so I can never forget.
Yeah. We should read that one too at some point.
I mean, hey, let's finish the Discworld and then we can start reading, because I think there's actually like 8 books in the long series.
Yeah.
There's several. He made a lot of them really quickly. Stephen Baxter writes really fast as well, so these two dudes got together and they just started pumping books out. Much to my delight.
Yeah. So ranking this is gonna be violent.
I just didn't like it. Like I'm gonna, on my personal list, I'm gonna put it pretty low. For me, it suffered from a lot of the same problems that fucking like the Light Fantastic suffered from, where I felt like he had lots of funny little scenes, and just couldn't pull them together. But this one is way better than Light Fantastic because he pulls it together a lot more. And those scenes are funnier and they're way better written because he's grown.
I'm so happy that through sheer force of will, I've got Light Fantastic as high on the list as it is.
Oh yeah, buddy. Listen, it's at number 7 on the primary list. I'm relying
at number 6 on the primary list.
Right? Yes. Sorry. Number 6 on the primary list. I'm just relying on the fact that there are 41 goddamn books on this series, and we're only at like number 10.
We're at number 12, actually.
Yeah, no, we are number 12.
I thought this was number 13.
Wait,
no, you're right. You're right,
yeah, we're at number 12. We're at number 12.
Okay.
I don't know. We got some rough picks in the early section, right? Like, this book definitively just better for me than Eric, Mort, Color of Magic, and Sorcery. Fucking no questions asked. And also Light Fantastic.
It's like, I'm trying to figure out if... I think it's below Moving Pictures for me and above Pyramids for my own list.
I would put it right below Weird Sisters and above Moving Pictures.
Above Moving Pictures? You want it in you want this
better...
book to number 4?
Yeah, I think it has much better characters than Moving Pictures and is a much more memorable book.
I vote between Moving Pictures and Pyramids, number 6.
Yeah, it's under Moving Pictures for me, probably.
Fuck. I guess it's going below Moving Pictures.
Yeah, for me, this one isn't beating Moving Pictures. Because I really enjoyed Moving Pictures.
There's like one memorable character in Moving Pictures, and he's better in the Guards books.
I fucking don't even goddamn remember Pyramids anymore. It feels like a lifetime ago that we read some Pyramids.
Pyramids was fun to read, but had too much incest.
Oh, right. A little bit of incest, a lot of bit of racism. Patepic, though I did like Patepic.
Yeah, I did. It was fun to read. It was just uncomfortable.
Oh, next one is gonna fucking slap. Like, next one might be number 1. Or at least number 1 for a while.
Small
and that's
Gods.
Small Gods.
I mean, Small Gods is
Yeah.
one of his most legendary works. I've actually already started it, and the quality of the writing is like already. I'm barely into it, and I can already feel the energy radiating off this book. He worked on Small Gods for so long,
and the ending is even better than the beginning.
Yeah,
And the beginning is great.
I think the name Lobsang also appears in that book, so congrats.
Probably.
Because if there's a fucking monk, one of them's named Lobsang every fucking time.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, I'm very excited for the next book.
Yeah, Small Gods is, I think, the entrance point for a lot of readers to him. I remember that was a book that Mulch lent me all those years ago.
And I still haven't read it.
Sorry. I actually haven't read it either.
I read it. I procrastinated on it because it's set way back in the past. It doesn't have any of the recognizable places or characters of Discworld. So I put it off for a while, and then I read it, and it blew my mind.
Is it set in the past?
Good. Yeah, it's set way in the past. It's the beginning of I think. Or about an Omnian. No, it's not the beginning of it's it's the beginning of the schism in or the reform.
Yeah, well, we'll read it and we can talk about where it exists in the timeline, or how it doesn't matter where it exists in the timeline. Both can be true. I am really excited for Small Gods. I think it will top the list for kind of a while. It's double notable as the first of the books which really fit into my favorite theme, which is the gods and in a grander sense. Hogfather will also dip into this. Thief of Time will also dip into this. Going Postal will also dip into this, and those are all my favorites. I love gods. I love religion.
And after that comes Lords and Ladies, which I like, and if I remember correctly, Purtis does not.
I've never read it. I've never read Lords and Ladies.
Oh, you haven't? I thought you talked shit about it. I have distinct memories of you talking trash.
I don't. I feel like that's. I think that's another one. That's another.
It's a witch's book.
It is a witch's book. I have not read most of the witches' books. I really didn't. I read Tiffany Aching, didn't super mesh with the other witches, and was I'm actually good. And I am reading the books now, and I was correct because I have gone to a lot of therapy. And if I had read these books while living with my mother, it would have I would have maybe moved out earlier.
Yes.
It would not have
been
good.
So it probably would have been
you moved out pretty early, so that's...
I did run away from home when I was 13 or whatever the fuck, so... Yes, leaving earlier would have been quite a feat.
Yeah.
And yet...
Man.
And yet... Genuinely...
The Tiffany...
She makes me so mad.
Oh.
Granny Weatherwax pissed me off so much. She makes me so upset.
Yeah. Man, the Tiffany Aching books are going to be... We're going to be having really long conversations about those.
I mean, I think that's inherent to the books themselves, too. Just because of why he wrote them and what he was thinking with them is so obviously meaningful to him. It lands up there on in terms of books that mattered to him. It's the Tiffany Aching series, Thud, Snuff. Those books hit so different because what he's feeling.
Oh man!
And to some extent, Raising Steam. Because Raising Steam feels like a midlife crisis. It's incredible.
Oh no, whiskey is climbing on me while I'm trying to record.
Uh-oh.
Whiskey bite their ass. Get her. Get her.
I Shall Wear Midnight, the second to last Tiffany Aching book, is one of my least favorite Discworld books.
Yeah, you've mentioned.
This period. It's one where I hate the writing, I hate the story structure, and I really, really don't like the theme.
Yeah.
It's one of the only Terry Pratchett books that I dislike because I dislike what he's trying to say.
That's fair. I don't know if I ever read I Shall Wear Midnight. I should compile a list of which one of these I have and have not read. We're going to hit a middle point where I've read all the books and I feel I love them so much, and I'm going to become insufferable. Because right now we're at the early part, and I just never fucking read these goddamn books. But we're going to hit Feet of Clay, we're going to hit Hogfather, we're going to hit fucking The True Thief of Time. Insufferable.
Very excited.
I will be so annoying.
I'm very excited.
Me too.
I'm so excited.
What I would do for another fucking Sam Vimes adventure right now, genuinely.
Yeah.
We're so far away from the next one. It's Men at Arms next. We have to read 3 more fucking books before we get to Men at Arms again. And
yeah,
I could do with some
Vimes.
I
love Men at Arms. Men at Arms is a book that I like more and more on each reread.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have so much to say about it.
Yeah. And then we've got Soul Music, which is, again, a winner.
Yes.
Like, Soul Music is good.
I miss my boy.
And then we've got the first, like, really, really bad one for a while, which is Interesting Times, which I'm not looking forward to.
Oh, back to the wizards.
I will fucking kill Rincewind. I will fucking enter the story within a story and become part of it myself. I will become the holistic assassin. I cannot stand that fucking dude.
Is a book that I cannot listen to without earbuds because it is so racist.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not want people in my vicinity to hear me listening to it.
Fair enough.
I'm not sure if I've said this on this podcast, but I am half Japanese and my dad is Japanese. And so I don't want him to walk in on me.
Hearing the most racist shit you've ever heard, yeah.
Yeah.
Because well-meaning racism it's so much worse, isn't it? Doesn't it just feel bad? Someone is directly racist, I'm like, okay, yeah, you called me a spick, whatever, go home. But like, unintentional, I'm like, I feel sick to my stomach. I feel wounded. Like, I have to go home and cry for a while.
It's like desperately and hopelessly awkward. Because like, when somebody is intentionally racist, it's easy to call them racist or to just not give a shit. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, they've shown who they are, and, like, you're either against it or for it. Whereas, like, unintentional racism just puts you in the most awkward position.
Yeah.
Yep. It's the worst. It's so bad. Yeah. A direct racist I can just write off, and I'm happy and satisfied forever. Okay. I think that pretty much concludes our episode for today.
Yeah.
I was true in my word. I don't feel like I had a lot interesting to say about this book. It was funny. If you don't have a deep inbuilt trauma around a character that's almost exactly like Granny Weatherwax, then I think you'd probably like it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have met Granny Weatherwax in real life.
Which is unfortunate. Yeah.
Which is not a good thing to do. She fights people on elevators.
Oh.
Because she knows that she's right. So, watch out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
And we're meeting again week after next.
Meeting again week after next. Yes.
That sounds good to me.
Did we say goodnight to the audience?
Good night, audience.
Sleep well, audience.
Bye.
Bye.
Audience, I love you.